no fireworks as was being expected. Parvit Pal now joins us. He's the foreign editor of Hindustan Times. He joins us to really take us through this debate and, of course, what we can take away from it. Mr. Chaudhary, what I'd like to know from you is that we were all expecting some hard stances to be taken, but it seems that everybody is dithering also at this point of time. They are keeping their options flexible. A lot of promises are coming in the same way the promises were made 4 years ago also by Obama.
Well, I think the game here was that because this is about the economy, to really go into the micro detail to explain the policies that each candidate has been pushing on the campaign trail. Outside the debate, before the debate, we've been seeing both candidates basically saying that the other person is making these big claims, but there are no numbers behind them, there's no facts behind them, that they're wrong. So the game here was to really tell people, look, no, it's not as I have details. I have a mastery of the understanding of the economy, and that's what I think we saw a lot of. We saw a lot of mind-numbing, in fact, numbers and statistics being put out by both candidates. But the game was to show I'm a leader. I have my numbers. I have my facts, and my policies are credible. And I think that's what, especially I think in my view, more so with Romney this time, we saw a lot more of that coming out.
All right. Inder Sood also joins us. He's a professor of international affairs joining us from the George Washington University. Mr. Sood, what I would like to know from you is what is the takeaway? The body language, it seems that Obama certainly lost a lot of that sheen. He looked a little bored. He looked condescending at some point of time, but definitely doesn't have that magic that he had 4 years ago.
No, I think you're probably right. The initial reactions that we have here are that Romney did hold himself, did present himself, looked credible, looked presidential, offered more details and more specifics. Obama looked slightly uncomfortable. He was, of course, as this always happens in these debates, where the incumbent is always at a somewhat of a disadvantage because the challenger is on the same stage. I think on balance, I would say Romney acquitted himself quite well tonight.
In terms of the economy, who seems to be more in control? Because obviously most of the debate was off economy. Of course, that Osama bin Laden, the hunt for Osama bin Laden and what he's achieved in terms of the Al-Qaeda being dropped at the very last. But in terms of the economy, who seems to be more realistic? Because time and again, Obama, it seems, was reminding Mitt that, look, this is arithmetic, this is maths. What you're suggesting is just not possible.
Well, I think here, this debate was on the economy. This was not obviously Obama's best wicket. I mean, of course, if you can keep looking at, in absolute terms, Romney has a case to make. Unemployment is over 8%. There's still about 20-some million people looking for jobs. Economic growth has been sluggish, and so on. So this is not Obama's strongest wicket. But on the other hand, if you're a partisan on the other side, and like Obama kept saying, look where we were 4 years ago. And this is a very difficult sell, unfortunately. I mean, I think people tend to look very much at the present. Memories tend to be short. And I think that's where, again, Romney was very good in hammering the point, kept repeating it, that, look, the situation is very bad. And, of course, he kept extrapolating from this. Despite the fact, I think most economists would say that over time we will see a gradual recovery, not a very fast one. But from a political point of view, and this obviously is a purely political debate, I think Romney was able to hammer the point that the situation is not good. And he did this quite effectively.
If you're saying the economy is not Obama's strong point, and Mitt has, of course, made good capital out of that, what are the strong points? Because obviously this is not the conclusive debate that we have seen. No, perhaps clear winners or losers, although Mitt did remarkably well. What are the strong points then that Barack Obama would look at, focusing on in his next few debates? And what is there for the international community to take out of this debate? As of now, yes, it was completely the domestic economy.
Well, I think surprisingly, traditionally, foreign policy has not been the strongest suit for the Democrats in the past. But for Obama, when the debate shifts on foreign policy, I think he'll be on stronger ground. I think he also has to, maybe in the next debate, pick some holes in Romney's argument. Romney was very smooth tonight. Well, Obama, for some reason, chose not to challenge him because he kept saying the math doesn't add up, but he did it very gently. I think he'll have to challenge Romney more, because Romney was very fluent today
Yes.
in asserting certain facts which were not really correct. I mean,
Yes.
Romney's math does not add up. Romney cannot have a tax control tax cut. There's no indication, but I was surprised to see that Obama, so he'll have to challenge Romney more. And maybe the tactic going in today was,
Yes.
since he was ahead in the polls, that he did not want to appear to be challenging Romney. I suspect in the next debate we will see Obama challenge Romney more. Foreign policy, I think he'll bring up much more of ending wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. This is a point which has a lot of support here, and it'll be interesting to see what Romney's position is. Perhaps on some of the social issues.
Okay.
Today, tangentially, they talked about ending don't ask, don't tell in the military. I think there'll be some discussion, perhaps also on things like right to choose and women's health issues. I think those are the kind of points. But I think that today's debate probably was the most critical. I mean, evidence always has been from the past debate. The first debate is the most critical, and I think you'll have to give Romney some credit for today's debate.
Okay, Mr. Sood, just hang in there for a second. Pravit, what I want to know from you also is the body language, is the aggression. As Mr. Sood was also saying that Obama did not come in, he did not challenge. Time and again, if you notice, it was a pattern. Mitt Romney was time and again saying, I have to come in on that. I have to have my last say. He wasn't allowing Obama to get the last word out of it. Why didn't we see the president more aggressive? Because here is an ace orator who's being perhaps challenged even better in his own game.
Well, Obama, some commentators have noted Obama in the past has sort of fluctuated between what some call Professor Obama and then Orator Obama. And there are times when Obama seems to become jaded. He becomes tired and he speaks in a monotone and he seems quite passive. And right now, somewhat unfortunately, I think he's in that phase. If you remember the Democratic Party convention, Clinton completely overwhelmed him on the podium. And Obama gave a speech that nobody can remember now. And I think to some degree that's continuing. This is partly the consequence, I think, just of being a president of the United States, who has to work every day and work out these problems. But there's a certain weariness, if you wish, with Obama right now. He'll come out of this at some point. He's done so before. But yes, I think Romney, who has come out as a bit wooden before and as a bit uncertain at times about what he believes in, came out much more forcefully, and partly because he's probably been preparing for this for at least past 4 or 5 days in getting ready for this, partly because he has nothing much more else to do. But yes, I think Obama clearly the type of oration and so on that Obama is famous for didn't come through this time. And this will be unfortunate, as Professor Sood has mentioned. The first poll, the first debate is the one that has the greatest impact on the polls. But Obama does have a lead. It's a shrinking lead right now. The latest tracking polls have shown that his original 6 to 8% lead is now shrunk to 3 and is now within the margin of error. And I think Romney is going to get a bit of a bump. My guess is he'll get a bit of a bump, and we'll see that coming out of this debate, both sides are going to be neck and neck.
Okay. This question goes to Pramit and Mr. Sood. And I want you gentlemen to separate fact from fiction, and of course the riff-raff that we get to hear. A lot of statements were acutely the same ones that we heard 4 years ago. We don't care who's a Republican. We don't care who's a Democrat. We're going to work together. That was a big promise that Obama made. He knows better now. Pramit, first you, what are those same sentences? Because, you know, Obamacare was talked a lot, and then Mitt Romney comes and says, look, I don't think that's a great plan. I am going to scrap it. I am going to change it. And obviously, that's going to set a very bad precedent. How do you work when you immediately say that you're going to scrap some of the flagship policies of the previous government? What are the other statements that we just have to exclude? We don't even want to listen to them because they are so repetitive in nature.
Well, I think the issue of the idea of being presidential, Americans, like in any other country in the world, every electorate would like their president to be in many ways above the fray of partisan politics and to show that he can unite a country. And we've seen in the past 2 or 3 years, especially, complete gridlock in the U.S. Congress, where both Republicans and Democrats have refused to cooperate with each other. So to be able to argue that I am going to be the person who can heal that wound, and I'm going to be able to make the the Congress and the executive work together, is going to be a key message. And realize that the next president, whoever he may be, he's going to have a divided House again, because all the polls are indicating the Republicans will control the House of Representatives, and it seems so far the Democrats will probably have a small edge in the Senate. So you're going to inherit a divided House anyway. So to be able to say that I'm going to be the one who can heal this is going to be a key part of being a winner in this election.
Okay, Mr. Sood, what are the statements that completely you would like to look out for, in the sense that they are not possible, in the sense of making both the houses work together, both the parties work together? It hasn't been done in the last 4 years. No chance of that happening anytime in the future.
Well, I think a couple of things we should keep in mind. One is, this is a very divided electorate. With the divisions we're seeing are not just in the Congress or in the President and the Congress. There really is a deep division in the country on some fundamental issues. And it's going to take some time to resolve those issues. The second point we have to keep in mind is, all said and done, the degrees of freedom for whether Romney is the president or Obama is the president to act are limited. The recipes of what needs to be done are clear. Some hard decisions will have to be made. I think the old saying goes in the U.S., if somebody has said that the Americans will always be counted to do the right thing after they've done everything else. So I have a feeling we're in that stage where there's a lot of sparring going on, but over time, and whether the time is right after the election or 2 years from now, the two parties will have to get together, because the solutions are going to be painful. There are no easy choices. Anybody who pretends otherwise, Obama probably is more realistic in his thinking, but I think that's what I see coming together. But I think it's going to be a painful process. The two parties are not inclined to do it as it is now, but it's going to be, the events will force them to come together.
And so, what is the driving force? What is the key aspect, the agenda of this election? Yes, it was the economy, but I heard Mr. Romney talk a lot more about jobs, jobs, jobs. Everything revolved for him around jobs. Even the economy is going to be put on track after the jobs come into effect. Is that going to strike a chord? Is that going to be the new change? Is that the new, yes, we can, jobs, jobs, jobs?
Well, I think, first of all, if Romney is the president, he will benefit from a natural economic cycle. I mean, clearly, the growth will pick up. How fast it pick up is a question to be defended, and that will create jobs. But on the other hand, I think a point that has not been discussed in this debate and not been talked about much, but there is a structural change in the American economy going on. And some economists have said the days of 5% unemployment or 4.5% unemployment are behind us. That we are likely to see structural unemployment, which is at a high level, maybe 7%, 7.5%. I think Americans have not quite internalized that idea. I don't think the politicians have internalized that idea. But how to adjust to a new economy? As you can see, the rhetoric always is we're shipping jobs to China or to India or whatever, and it buys you votes. The problem is, and it's a fundamental problem in the U.S., which is matching skills with jobs. Ironically, while we're talking about 23 million people unemployed, Bill Gates was on television the other day talking about how he's severely short of engineers and programmers and so on, and arguing for an increase in visas. So you can see some contradictions in the economy, and I think the whole mismatch of jobs, even in a growing economy, is an issue which both sides will have to face over time.
Yes, perhaps they don't have sufficient amount of skilled jobs, at least in engineers, and that is why you have Microsoft that is begging for employment. They want to employ people. They don't have the right kind of manpower. On the other hand, of course, we are seeing more unemployment. Mr. Chaudhary and Mr. Sood, just hang in there for a second. We'd like to play out some very important sound bites from that debate, the first presidential debate that we witnessed. Yes, it was all about economy, but clearly Mitt Romney showing Obama that he too can actually hold his own in front of the ace orator.
Let's make sure that we are cutting out those things that are not helping us grow. So 77 government programs, everything from aircrafts that the Air Force had ordered but weren't working very well. 18 government programs for education were well-intentioned, but weren't helping kids learn. We went after medical fraud, in Medicare and Medicaid very aggressively, more aggressively than ever before, and have saved tens of billions of dollars, $50 billion of waste taken out of the system. And I worked with Democrats and Republicans to cut $1 trillion out of our discretionary domestic budget. That's the largest cut in the discretionary domestic budget since Dwight Eisenhower. Now, we all know that we've got to do more. And so I put forward a specific $4 trillion deficit reduction plan.
I think it's frankly not moral for my generation to keep spending massively more than we take in, knowing those burdens are going to be passed on to the next generation. I want to lower spending and encourage economic growth at the same time. What things would I cut from spending? Well, first of all, I will eliminate all programs by this test if they don't pass it. Is the program so critical it's worth borrowing money from China to pay for it? And if not, I'll get rid of it. My plan is not to put in place any tax cut that will add to the deficit. That's point one. So you may keep referring to it as a $5 trillion tax cut, but that's not my plan. Okay. Number two, let's look at history. My plan is not like anything that's been tried before. My plan is to bring down rates, but also bring down deductions and exemptions and credits at the same time so the revenue stays in, but we bring down rates to get more people working. My priority is putting people back to work in America. They're suffering in this country. And we talk about evidence. Look at the evidence of the last 4 years. It's absolutely extraordinary. We've got 23 million people out of work or stopped looking for work in this country.
All right.
We've got, when the president took office, 32 million people on food stamps, 47 million on food stamps today. Economic growth this year, slower than last year, and last year slower than the year before. Going forward with the status quo is not going to cut it for the American people who are struggling today.
All right, so of course the first debate is over and speculation is rife. The commentary has been coming in, but one thing is absolutely unanimous, that Obama looked jaded. So in the truth, what I would like to know from you is what happened to the Obama who wooed the world just 4 years ago? Yes, we can, those speeches, and of course something to the effect of even getting the Nobel Peace Prize without having actually done anything for it. What has happened to him in the intermediary? Is it just that we are seeing a president who knows the reality versus a Mitt Romney who's again suggesting things based on, of course, ideals? And here is a president who knows the facts, knows the maths, and hence is doing the talking. In the process, however, he seems to have lost the magic.
Well, I think you put your finger on it. As the president, he has to defend a record. He has to say why things are not as good as somebody wants them to be. Now, it's a very difficult proposition for a sitting president to defend a record that says, look, if I had not acted, things would have been worse. We know that's true. We know Obama was faced with a very difficult situation. The world was faced with a very difficult situation. But that's a very sophisticated argument. Unfortunately, in sound bites, in debates, in political campaigns in the U.S., it escapes most people. So Obama has a very difficult job on the economy to make the point which he's tried to make. Bill Clinton made it very effectively, actually, I think, in the convention, said, look, yes, we are better off than we were 4 years ago. I think Obama, for some reason, is still struggling with that message. Romney, on the other hand, as a challenger, can rattle away all sorts of things. For example, his tax cuts, but I don't want to raise taxes. This is something he keeps adding. And he didn't provide any details when he says he was doing Dodd-Frank. He didn't say what he was replaced with. That's a good tactic on his part. I think it's a political tactic, and a challenger can often get away with it. Obama, a sitting president, on the other hand, does not have that luxury. He has to defend the record. And I think that's what we saw today.
Pramit, what I would like to know from you is, were you hoping to hear a little bit more about foreign policy? Or are we going to hear a lot less about foreign policy, about diplomacy? Because honestly, elections are not won on those issues. They're won basically on internal issues, and specifically in America, it has to be economy, it has to be jobs. So are we going to see a whole lot more economic sessions, economic classes really going on there in those debates, rather than the bigger picture, the foreign policy role of America in a global community?
Well, I think that yes, definitely this election is all about the election. It's all about the economy, and it's really all about jobs. All the polling evidence that we have shows that out of the top 5 issues that U.S. voters are interested in, the 4 of them are economic, and foreign policy, national security, terrorism tends to come down at roughly about 9, 10, or 11. yeah, and foreign policy can be important. 9/11, for example, something on that scale transforms the entire national debate. At that point, Bush became unstoppable as a U.S. president after the 9/11 attack happened. But right now, America is withdrawing from two big wars. It's trying, in fact, very hard not to get involved in anything internationally. The only foreign policy issue that keeps coming up is the issue of China, both partly as a military threat, but really as an economic threat. And you will notice that China is virtually the only foreign country that kept popping up in this debate, in this one, which is mainly about economy. And China remains, in my view, the primary foreign policy issue. But a lot of it is tied to the economy. It's not tied, I think, to the strategic side. But the real foreign policy debate, as you know, will be on October 22nd. The third debate will be on foreign policy, where I think we'll see the U.S. ambassadors being killing in Libya coming up for a lot of conversation.
Okay, a whole lot more ground to be covered before the third debate, and a whole lot of swings might just happen. Really not the Nixon-Kennedy era where a debate can swing everything, but clearly Obama needs to up his game at this point of time, because Mitt is definitely closing in on him, even really hitting him where nobody thought it would. That he can actually take on Obama in matters of debate on a public fora. One never thought that Obama would be so jaded, and that is at least a unanimous opinion that is coming in. But as Mr. Sood was pointing out, here is a president whose hands are tied because he's a sitting incumbent president. He has to take reality into consideration. Inder Sood, many thanks for joining us all the way from George Washington University, and Parvit Pal, many thanks for joining us here on our Headlines Studios. That's all we have time for.